Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our. I'm not sure what number we're on. I think it could be our eighth stream. We have just become affiliates of Twitch, so thanks for everybody who sort of followed us and liked us over the the last few weeks. Tonight, our guest is Hannah Hicks. Hannah, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
So my name's Hannah. I've studied illustration at Glyndŵr Uni, and I'm just coming towards the end of my fourth year, my master's year. I'm from Worcestershire, but I now live in North Wales. And I started off painting, but now like painting with acrylics, but now I've moved into digital and just working towards trying to hack my way into children's illustration industry. So just setting up my portfolio ready.
Yeah. Sounds great. And you're coming to the end of your studies now. This is it. This is your master illustrator, and moving out to the big wide world. So what we'll do is we'll take some questions from the chat as they come in. As we normally do. We will jump into the next screen in a minute and have a little look at your Instagram. And just explain a few pieces and stuff about what you do, and then we'll jump in and ask what it is you're going to do for us this evening. So I just want to check people watching if there is any issues with the sound, then please let us know. Backing music, that sort of stuff. Right, so let's jump in and see what we've got on Instagram. Right, so this is a share screen, so we'll just pop the Instagram up there. That is the wrong thing. There you go. So I actually had the Twitch stream up there. So I'm just going to double check before we carry on that we're not echoing or anything, and I have got this muted. Yeah, we're fine. Okay. All right. So straight away we've got Kiss My Artichoke in the chat saying hello. All good here with the sound as well, so that's good. So Hannah, if you want to talk us through your Instagram, I'm just going to scroll through and you let us know if you want us to stop on anything or talk about an individual piece, and I'll just highlight it up and stuff.
So I think I've set up this Instagram for about I want to say 5 years now, and I'm pretty sure it was first set up with it was called Wishful Illustrator. That was like the Instagram name to start off with. So it started literally from the beginning of my illustration journey to where I'm at now. I'd say that I've gotten poorer at posting like roughs, because now it's got to portfolio, it seems really precious. So today I actually just pushed one of the roughs that I'm actually working on today onto my Instagram. It's like the first one. I don't know. Oh no, it doesn't.
I'll refresh it and see if it could be because I've had it open
there we go.
most of the day. So
yeah, I literally posted that today just to sort of break through that wall of don't post, stop posting scruffy work. I was like, no, I want to post my scruffy work because that's what I used to do. And then a couple, if you go to two over, that one, that's from one of my most recent projects that I've actually submitted to Macmillan, Pan Macmillan competition. Okay. And well, not just that one, it was part of a children's book which is called Together, and that was inspired by lockdown, which I'm anticipating quite a few people following. But I wanted to do artwork. I wanted to do a whole children's book about it, because beforehand I had drafted children's books just about animals, because that's what I specialize in. And so for my masters I did sort of move towards just doing quite mature subjects like people, and it was obviously about being separated from loved ones, and this one specifically was about a young boy separated from his grandmother. And so the sort of more recent couple of spreads are what I've submitted for Macmillan. And it was quite difficult, honestly, because I was trying to keep the boy and the grandma on the same side of the spread. Okay. So coming up with narrative, because it's more a narrative of going through a year like looking at separation, like it's got an eerie quality to it because you never see the like boy and the grandma actually physically together, but they're all about sharing memories that people would normally experience in a year, just like, you know, everyday stuff like going to the zoo and stuff, and like to the park that one is. I think I actually submitted one of the I think it was an earlier version of the park one to World Illustration Awards because I wasn't finished with it yet, but I thought I just want to put something through to get the ball rolling, so I'll keep submitting to it like every year.
So have you heard anything back from Macmillan or from the World Illustration?
I can't even remember when World Illustration Awards were meant to announce. Macmillan, the deadline was 28th of April, so 2 recent. Really, yeah.
I mean, it's a great idea showing that, you know, they're together but separated at the same time. I think that's really going to be helpful. I think trying to explain to children as well why they can't see their grandparents and whatever else, really difficult thing to do. This next one, I know this one because you did this in one of my classes.
I loved doing that project. It's probably like, I actually I did apply for Unilever with that. I didn't unfortunately get through, but that's fine. I loved working with the narrative because that is something that I've realized this year mostly, is that if I try and do illustration without narrative, I tend to get really bored and it just doesn't work. Right. So even with packaging design, I wanted there to be a narrative, and that's why this project was centered around it's skincare products. So when I was in first year, I got like really bad eczema, like chronic eczema, and when you go to the doctors, they just suggest like steroid cream. So I was trying to sort of think of ways that I've dealt with it, and a lot of it has been more natural products as opposed to just going for like steroid cream, because it actually weakens your skin. And so this was all about trying to find ways of using more natural ways of like healing your skin, and that's what the narrative's about, is just women feeling confident.
empowering and ethical. I like the words. Like those words. It's absolutely, and I think it's absolutely Unilever's loss. It's kind of they're a huge corporation. I don't think they're that keen on sort of
even though they were like, we want sustainability, like they do have a couple of like products that are leaning towards more natural ways, but you know, in my heart I know they're not properly, so so yeah, that's what I sort of anticipated them being like, nah.
Well, the thing is though, it's showing what you can do, and it's showing your range of skill as well of about coming up with a narrative that's part of a product as well. Being able to tell the story through those products, fantastic.
Thank you.
Let's keep going. We'll have a few. This one's more of a.
That's just one of the designs from the packaging design, but it's just the wraparound.
Yeah. Well, we've got a couple of things in the chat. Kiss my artichokes, but that's fantastic. And as long as it brings in the cash with a emoji covering the mouth, so there we go. So some more traditional stuff. Is that canvas? Seeing that?
This is what I like. This is the way that I've gone with my acrylic traditional work, because I did try and incorporate it into children's books, but it was taking too long. Now I take on commissions that are mostly like pet portraits, but these ones are actually, like, as you can see from that image, they are tiny. They're actually magnets, and that came from I used to go to craft fairs, which was the wrong market for me personally, but I was like, oh, maybe it's because my work's too expensive, because obviously in order to like earn hourly, I was trying to sell my artwork for quite a bit because they had taken me so long, because they were like traditional acrylic. And I just made like these tiny little canvases. They weren't magnets at the time, but people kept picking them up and like looking around them. I was like, what are they looking for? I was like, oh, they think they're gonna be magnets. It's like,
yeah.
Didn't even think of it. So yeah,
so that's where the magnet came from.
That's where the magnet came from, was people just not buying them when they weren't magnets.
Well, this is it. It's doing that market research, isn't it, and looking at what people are doing at that time.
Yeah. So at Christmas time, I had quite a few. Not all of them are on Instagram. They're really fun to make, and I do make them all from like scratch. Like the whole canvas is like just handmade. Yeah. So obviously the magnets aren't handmade. I'm not that talented. I wouldn't even
you wouldn't know where to start with magnets. Because I noticed on your Instagram you did some Christmas packages as well.
I did, yeah. Because I started an Etsy store. I want to move away from Etsy, which is why the Etsy store hasn't been like pushed in a while, and I've just been focusing on uni work more than anything, more than trying to push an Etsy store, because I want to do a bit more research into where people are selling. I think folksy is getting a bit more.
Yeah, I've heard a lot more to do with folksy than Etsy nowadays. Yeah. I think it's more to do with the amount that they charge, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
the commission's a lot less in effort.
Stupidly, I didn't even know about it when I set up the Etsy store, but I was kind of like, oh, they're there. Then they are there now. Mm-hmm. But out of all of the products on my Etsy that did the best, I think it was actually like your little book of freedom. It was It was actually the one that did the best, which was really nice, because it was the thing that took me the longest, because it's like, it's only a little book. I actually have them like right here. They're only like.
Let me turn this off so we can see if you hold.
Oh yeah.
We're currently covering your camera. Right, there you go. So if you hold it up again, let's have a look. There you go.
Like
so they're
bit.
Quite small.
Yeah, they're tiny, but there's not that many pages really, but it still took a while, because at the end of the day, it's almost like a little zine. But I had a lot of fun making it, and people seemed to respond to it really well. Yeah. So out of all the things that did the best, it was that one.
So have you got any pictures of the inside on your Instagram, or is it?
Now I think it's on a different post.
Yeah. Well,
I think
we'll look through.
One that's specific to that book, I think. And then the wrapping paper was an experiment, actually. I didn't think it was going to do that well, but they actually sold out. I was really like...
That's good.
Yeah. I actually sold out without stock, so I didn't order like loads and loads because I didn't know how they do, but I was like, oh yeah. They were like recyclable as well.
That sounds good.
Sort of tried to keep down the sustainability ethical route, which is obviously what I want to do. Yeah.
And something I always keep going on about in the classes. So I think it was so much so that somebody actually put a polar bear on their presentation, because I kept going on about protecting the polar bears. So yeah. So are these more? These stickers.
Yeah, they were Etsy stock as well. The stickers I haven't actually found to do fantastically. I thought they'd do a bit better because it's Etsy, but they've still been like fun to try out, and the amount of sticker paper that I've purchased to like experiment is ridiculous. I like bought sticker punches, the circular one, then they blunted within like 5 seconds. So I was like, oh, you're useless. And then I went to like Avery paper. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, to be fair. But other times, I think for that one, I can't remember.
There's a comment in the chat from Gizmacho. It says, love the idea of wrapping paper. I can see why it's sold out. I've been looking for recyclable wrapping paper. So there you go. So another potential customer, Hank.
Yeah. Thank you.
So that's going to be, maybe you need to order more stock for next year. I think especially the whole recyclable, ethical, sustainable stuff. Everyone needs to be thinking about that right now. It's kind of, it's absolutely at the forefront, isn't it, of climate change and whatever else. Making sure that everything you create is sustainable, recyclable, and kind to the environment. And not cruel to animals as well. That's
No, sorry, I was laughing at the post that you were on, not about the
sustainable.
That seemed really disrespectful. Like, nah, ethical. It just made me chuckle. I forgot that these were on.
Did you? So was this for a particular project or?
Yeah. Well, not even for uni. That's for a business that I've been working with that want like it's for children to like encourage children to do stretches, and so those ponies are actually at the yard. So it's not random. I promise. I don't just think of this.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, you're a children's illustrator predominantly, a specialism. So there's all sorts of books, isn't there? There's a book called Sitting Still Like a Frog, I think, that teaches children mindfulness. So getting these illustrations out there is kind of really good.
It's because I have to do stretches like every morning because I need to go to the doctors or something. I think it's like an muscle atrophy thing, where I can't sit down for like a whole day, like a whole working day. So it's sort of about trying to get children to start early with stretching so that they don't just go stiff. I experimented with like printing mugs, but mugs are just far too like expensive to print when you don't have. Well, because I've actually still got that mug. It was like, I think it was £10 to print.
Wow, okay.
And then it's sort of actually, you've got to sell it, and then how do you mark up? And you'd get to about sort of, £15, and it's too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's making sure that price point's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's always tricky, especially if you're not mass producing these things. I mean, that's the difficult thing, isn't it? It's trying to find a product that you can bring to market. If it is cups or mugs or whatever else, but then how do you keep that cost low that people will buy it? But how do you keep the sustainable sort of ethical aspect in there?
Yeah.
It's not, you're not sending it off to another country to mass produce it and they're using all sorts of chemicals and whatever else. It's a tricky one, isn't it? It's really sort of difficult to do.
Yeah.
So, what we'll do, we'll have a look at a couple more, and then we'll ask you what it is you're going to do for us this evening. That's okay?
Sure. Yeah.
So, I'm just flicking through some of these. These are some of the. I mean, I really like that. That book's really good. I think some images on the inside would be good on there.
I think that post does. Is that like a multiple post?
No, it's just one, and I can't click any further on that one.
Oh, that's.
You've had a like for it. So
oh, strange. Oh yeah, that because it was. So I'm in like my studio right now, which we built in summer, and that was a table that I painted for it, and it was a really old table, and that's why it's on there.
That's good to upcycle in your
yeah.
Cool. Right, so what are you gonna do for us tonight if I turn that Instagram off? We'll come back to your Instagram a bit later towards the end of the stream and see what if we get any questions about it or anything like that. And we've got another comment saying from Kiss Mantichoke, you could maybe market it as a product you could provide and people can make up their own mind. If you love a particular piece, they may be willing to pay more for a cup. So if you've got some in stock and people are willing to sort of, especially if it's sustainable or whatever else, and it's cruelty free and whatever else, people can make up their mind then to pay a little bit extra for it, can't they? Especially if it's supporting wildlife or anything else like that as well.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so do you want to tell us about the piece you've got on screen at the moment?
So these are, I've got like 3 up at the moment because they're 3 projects that I'm currently working on at the same time. I have a busy brain and I like to work on multiple projects at once. I'm a heathen. But this one, I've just turned up the opacity just so that people could see what I had started with, and I'll actually turn off the sketching. Because this is one of the things that's missing from my portfolio. Well, you know, there's never just one thing, but is I'm working towards putting in more non-fiction illustrations. And so I picked sort of 3 topics which I'm not so confident in. One of them is history, because I am very visual in that I usually, if I'm working on a project, it's because I've either been to somewhere similar or like I'm familiar with the topic, which is why my Instagram has a lot of horses on it. But like I obviously wasn't alive in World War One, and so this is something that I'm not very confident in. I struggle to look at like photo reference and know exactly what I'm looking at. Oh,
sorry, that's
it's all right.
Now everyone knows there's motion at the back door. So there we go.
I wouldn't know. I don't have an Alexa, so I don't even know how it works. But this one started off with that I thought I was going to do a non-fiction piece on flowers, and then I got really bored because, as I said earlier, I'm not very good when there isn't narrative. Yeah. So I was trying there's like 4 sort of things at Key Stage 1 about like 4 flowers that children are meant to know. It's poppies, tulips, daffodils, and roses. And so I picked poppies because obviously I was a bit more familiar with the history of them and why children need to know about them. And so that's why I'm working on this piece. And because I had a complete art block on it, I just smashed a sort of composition together and was just trying out textures. So if I zoom in, you can see the brushes that I've used are very textured in the background, but I've tried to keep the foreground flat. Okay. With the people. And so that was the main thing I was experimenting with, but actually working back into it and trying to analyze whether the like composition is working as a whole. The rocks, when I first thought about the composition, like I had in my head, they were going to be a lot more textured, a lot more busy, so the people really stood out. But they A, look like cheese, B, look like gold. So it's like, are they miners? And then I do this, I run through it after I've sort of come to a point with my work. I'm like, actually, what is it? What would at first glance people think if they didn't see that the title was like a soldier? So I've just been working back into it, trying to re-sketch it out and add in more little details of war. Because one of the things that inspired this piece was like mortar shell art that people have produced, and that's what this soldier's doing. And there's loads of them. They sell for a lot of money. Very, very jealous of how much they go for. And it's just sort of thinking about different objects in the trenches in World War One. This one I've sort of thought about like the Flanders fields, like, you know. Yeah. So I've used those as sort of a reference now, working back into it and just changing things. So I've been working with this composition with the opacity turned down on the original layer. Just because I don't want to lose the overall composition, I just want to add to it and make it a bit more, like, as Sue was saying earlier, I like to make things pretty. And so I need to make it look more mucky.
Yeah, because I think the trenches might have been a little bit mucky.
Yeah. When I first thought about the composition, I thought it would be a bit more of an abstract piece about soldiers returning to, like, for some reason, to, like, you know, memorials of the trenches and that way, but it doesn't communicate that way. So I'm just switching it up completely. And then I've got another piece which is about Rosa Parks.
Okay.
And this would be a front cover for a non-fiction book about Rosa Parks, if that wasn't obvious. And this one has been on a huge journey because I wanted to keep the style really loose, sort of mimicking because when I had finished with the packaging designs, I tried to stay working with Illustrator, thinking that I could just switch to Illustrator as a software.
Yeah.
But it almost made my work too clean. Mm-hmm. So then I leaned more towards making it very free. I do this, I go from like one extreme to the other, which I don't think is a bad thing, but I've got like a too much gene where I just have to throw everything in one direction and then like find the middle ground. So
which software would you prefer to use? Is it Clip Studio or Illustrator?
Clip Studio, really, purely because it's got a little bit more freedom to it. With Illustrator, I find it difficult to get an organic line. Yeah. I'm sure there are ways of doing it or ways of mimicking one, but it's very clean cut with the pen tool, which is like, you know, a highly recommended tool and highly recommended software. It's very professional, but when you're going for like children's illustration, sometimes it can't be clean, I don't think. I see a lot of children's illustration using textured brushes. I don't know how to make my own brushes yet, so sort of need a software that has a lot of textured brushes.
A summer project for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Clip Studio, it has both, doesn't it? It has raster and vector graphics built in, like, or not built in, but you're able to switch between those layers, aren't you? Which can give you a bit more freedom.
Yeah. I know with one of my pieces I experimented with the vector tool, and now I can't remember which one it is. So I know I've used it on Clip Studio before, and it's like it's a vector tool. So the only thing with the vector tool that annoys me is that you can't change the color. I can't anyway, personally, as a non-tech savvy person. Yeah. I don't know how to change the color of the object that I've just created in vector. So, and then... Are
you talking about Clip Studio or Illustrator?
Clip Studio.
Okay. Because I know in Illustrator, you just literally double click it.
Yeah, I can do it in Clip Studio. Yeah. No, not Clip Studio, in Illustrator. So, yeah, can do it in that one.
It's on my list over the summer to look into Clip Studio more, because more and more people are moving towards it. Because then it used to be called Manga Studio.
Yeah, it did, and I had it when it was called that, which made me feel, really, really good. It's like when, you were doing this like nice artwork, they're like, oh, what'd you make it in? It was like, Manga Studio. I was like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with manga, but when you look at it from a professional point of view, in the UK, it's frowned upon. So I think it's probably changing. I think it's changing a lot. People are being a little bit more open-minded. But and then my third piece is this one, because another topic that I'm not very confident in is cityscapes, and I know that this one doesn't actually have a lot of city in it, but that's my coping mechanism.
Start small and build your way,
I've got a couple more roughs that I've sort of like got in the works, where there is a lot more city in them, but they're like complete rough. They're you can't really properly make out what they are yet. So these are the three that I'm working on at the moment. This one is just taking a lot of reference, and I keep thinking there's something wrong with this file, and then realize I'm on a group file. Like, why does that keep happening to me? It happened to me earlier when we first screen shared. I was like, oh no, it's not going to let me actually draw on it during the thing. I was like, oh no, it's just me being a bit stupid still. So
Layers is a tricky thing when it comes to digital art, isn't it? It's kind of it's
Especially
so important, but yeah, it can be so. If you forget to put a layer in, then you've got to go back, or you've got to edit it somehow, and then if you group them together and you try and paint and you think. The one thing I always do is have something selected in Photoshop and try and draw something else somewhere, and it's like, why isn't this drawing? And it's this tiny myopic little piece that's been selected.
Especially it's really difficult, like with the layers when you name them like I do, which is that you most of the time forget to name them, so they end up looking like that, and it's ugly. So I cover it up with grouping them, which is really easy in the lot.
Need to get in the habit of labeling those layers. So we got a question in the chat for you. Your work is really clean and pretty. How often do you draw?
Oh, that's a good question though. It depends if you mean like life drawing or if you mean like my artwork. So I do work on my tablet like every day because I sort of go for little and often. I can't, as I said earlier, I can't sit down at my tablet for like a whole day without a break, without like moving off and doing something else. So I am at my tablet like every day. I don't know about the duration. I'd say it probably averages out at about 3 or 4 hours. But I have to take a lot of breaks. I sort of go for a lunchtime stint and then an evening. So it is very regular. But it depends what you mean by clean. If you mean like on my Instagram, it's clean. I'm a cleaner painter than I am a drawer, as you can see. Like I'm really when I'm actually trying to find, especially when I'm not very confident with the form of something, if I'm trying to find out what the form is of an object, then it takes me a very sort of a long few lines. If I'm doing just a rough, obviously if I'm doing it for real, it does sort of I'm a lot cleaner with the lines, but I do have to look at reference for everything. With a lot of things this year, obviously it's been difficult to do life drawing of, for example, cities, because we were in lockdown and we weren't allowed to go anywhere. So a lot of this has come from like reference. And I know for Cityscapes I was using like Cardiff because I didn't want to use like, I don't know, this really like loads and loads of huge, I don't know, more well-known cities, I guess. I was trying to keep it quite local because I tend to go for more local stuff.
Yeah, because I think you get the iconic skylines, don't you, and stuff that people can recognize straight away.
Yeah, and I sort of try and mismatch them as well. I don't really draw one building because in Together, one of the spreads is I say one of the spreads, actually 3 of the spreads are the 2 houses that the little boy and the grandma live in, sort of juxtaposed, but they are quite European houses, very inspired by like Dutch houses. And I have been to the Netherlands and I was doing life drawing there, which is why I'm like sort of they're very much in love with like Dutch buildings. They're beautiful. But I mismatched them so it wouldn't just be a picture. It wouldn't just be this very rigid drawing of one building. It'd probably be like 5 thrown together, because I think that's how you make something original. So
absolutely. Dutch architecture is just, I don't know, there's just something about it that you can just, every street looks different. It's like, and it's all sort of different sizes, especially Amsterdam, when you've got like, you'll have a huge townhouse and then a tiny little house that's wedged in between, and found out that that's because the big house next door had a servant and they gifted the yard to the servant, so the servant built a house in between 2 bigger houses.
Whoa.
So it's
I didn't know.
It's so much about Dutch architecture that's really nice. And I think trying to get yourself into cityscapes and things like that is always difficult, because it's all about perspective, isn't it? It's keeping that making sure you get the perspective lines right, the horizon line, 2, 3, 4 point perspective. It's all that sort of. Just going back to the chat, it definitely from Kiss My Nacho, it definitely shows. Maybe clean is the wrong word. I mean, it's bright and fresh in terms of what you meant about your work, rather than.
Because I am obsessed with colours. I don't have. Unless someone finds one. This is where someone finds one. Like, yeah. I don't often do like black and white images. I used to be awful at colour. It took a long time for me to actually fine tune how to use colour and how sometimes less is more. Because I think, well, Steve's seen one of them where I found the gradient tool on Illustrator, and so everything had a gradient in it. It was very bad.
And gradient shadows as well. It's kind of.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah. It is one of them things. As soon as you learn something new or you find something, it kind of, you want to do more of it, because it's something that you're comfortable with and and you think, yeah, I've done this, I've cracked it, so I'm going to keep having a go with it and using it. But it is knowing when and how to use it, isn't it? And that's the next skill.
Like, the biggest skill that I've learned one of the biggest skills that I've learned in uni is when to stop. Yeah. Like, then I started stopping too early.
Yeah.
And things started looking incomplete, and I'd have a session with, like a one-to-one, and they'd be like, this isn't finished, right? And I'm like, no, of course not. No, yeah. No, it's not. I've got loads to do on it.
Now we know. So next time you've got an assessment.
Now I know it's not finished. So just testing the water.
I mean, it's something that's been brought up with the fine artists as well, is knowing when a painting is complete.
Yeah.
How do you know when it's finished? At what point do you say that's enough? Because
I say that it's when it's achieved what it needs to achieve, but obviously that can be very abstract, and that is probably a very fine art answer. So
absolutely.
Count me a fine art student now.
Because we had a talk from a game studio. We won't name drop, but they were saying that they don't want to see your first try, second, third. They want to see the fourth and the fifth, because they want you to keep going back over the same piece and putting a new spin on it. And I'm not sure, that would necessarily work for a painter or for an illustrator.
No,
in terms of creating. You get what?
I get bored.
You get bored.
I have to try. I'll give things about sort of 3 or 4 tries. The fifth one, that'd break me. Like, I think there comes a stopping point.
Yeah.
So trying to find different types of mortar shells is like really difficult when you don't really know about what they are, if they work in that space. I don't think they do. I'm gonna move on to doing something else. Do you see what I'm like? Like, just.
Well, I mean, if it doesn't work, it's better to move on, isn't it?
Well, sometimes I try and see if it'll work with something else there.
Yeah.
As well, because at the moment some of it doesn't look right. So, as I said, this is still a rough. Nothing has to be perfect yet, but. Another thing that I have realised throughout uni is that for an illustrator, I'm actually not a perfectionist, which I don't know if that is a blessing or a curse, because I know a lot of illustrators are like, I'm very perfectionist, it takes me so long to complete anything, so just keep working at it. I've almost got the opposite problem, where I just don't notice when things are wrong because I don't strive for perfection.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes you can beat something to death if you try and make it too perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is, I think, with a lot of my lines, I have got a lot more, I will do them very off the cuff, because I'm like, I didn't intend for it to be perfect anyway. When you're sort of looking at something, you're like, well, it's as good as I thought it was going to be, because I didn't have a huge expectation for that line. Didn't overthink it. So
And we've got another question from the chat. Do you have a favourite piece that you've created?
I'd have to look at my Instagram, you know. Again, a really good question, because I've got a couple of favourite projects, but favourite pieces also depends on, like, at the time I had favourite pieces that are now not my favourite because I've grown from them.
Yeah.
But at the time I thought they were, like, amazing. It also depends on if you mean funny, because sometimes I look back and I'm like, that was a really funny piece.
So I mean, how do you, again, I mean, determining what you sort of think a good project is that something that you felt good about doing it at the time, or is it just that it turned out well? I mean, what you determine is that?
So at the moment, my favourite project, like, personally, has been, I think overall, my favourite project has been Together, which is the children's book about the grandma and the son, purely because it taught me so much about, I did the project in, did I do it in 3 different softwares? I'm sure I've done that project in 3 different softwares, trying to find out what worked best for it. I think it is one of those projects where less was more.
Yeah.
I think I allowed it to be quiet. So I enjoyed the process quite a lot. I'd say there were a couple of spreads when you look over the overall book, which half of them aren't complete because for Macmillan you only need to submit, like, it's 4 complete final artworks.
Right.
And then the rest can be line work. So I would say Together is my favourite, but I think one of the projects that I had the most fun with was Tiny, which was in 3rd year, and that was about
the book.
It was about a horse. So that's why. One of the reasons why my favourite was because it was on a topic that I really enjoyed drawing. I had good feedback on social media as well, where people were like, I love Tiny, like, we want more stuff from Tiny, and it made a lot of people laugh. I think the one of the pony party and the tutus, that got the most, like, shares and engagement on Facebook out of all of them. And so, like, I know that seems like some projects need to be validated, but I think it's because people can see when you've really enjoyed something.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I obviously had a lot of fun with that one, and it was a project that was self-motivated as well as, like, it had a reason behind it. I originally thought I would be submitting that one to Macmillan, but it's not really something I wouldn't say that would go that far in Macmillan. I might be wrong. Maybe one day I'll push it, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's likely to do well at Macmillan.
So, well, I mean, we live in. We hope it will. I think, and it's definitely got the legs to do so. I mean, even if they don't pick it up, it's definitely sort of something that, especially with getting shares and stuff like that. So people are obviously interested, even if you go off to try and publish it later on or revisit it or something.
That is one of my goals, is to approach some publishers once I've done these last few portfolio pieces. Is just to try and shove them in some publishers' faces. Nicest way of putting it.
So, Gizmo, joke in the chat, but that's brilliant. Thank you for your answer. Okay, so it's always difficult to pick your favourite, isn't it? It's always it's kind of like that question of pick your favourite child. No, can't do it. No, not doing it.
Really violent, so no.
So, how did you find out about the course at the university?
Now, I was thinking about this earlier because I had a feeling that you'd ask, but honestly, I think I looked up the course on, I think, like, the UCAS website, and, like, I looked up illustration, and I saw Rex and Glindo. I was like, oh, I've never actually heard of that. And I was like, oh, North Wales, never been there either. And then opened up the website. I was like, oh my days, there's colours on it. Such like a Hannah brain thing to do is like, this one's got colours on it. It's not just like black and white. It's not just yellow. I was like, oh. So yeah, delved deeper and then found that they weren't looking for a house style for illustration. And a lot of the stuff that was advertised wasn't something that I had seen in other courses. And they are like, I got to do the things that were promised on the page. So, you know, it was good advertisement.
That's always good.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure what happened then. Got a massive load of feedback straight in from me talking. So yeah, it's always good to hear when, you know, I mean, bright colours on the website. Never even thought that that would be a thing.
Yeah, like an A-level student, would you? But
but it's good to hear that you got to do what it says, and I think that's something that we do strive to do, is that we say what what we do is what we say. It's kind of, or we say what we're going to do, and it's that making sure that you have those experiences and the ability to work on those projects, and we don't restrict people to, you have to do this style or you have to do that. It's the amount of students that come in with an idea of where they want to be and what they want to do, and then when they get a taste of different things, they walk away with something completely different and they're happier.
I think that it's, I was talking about this with a friend the other day. Whenever you're a first year student and you go on the course with your art style and you think, I'm sorted, like, even though you're taking the course, you're like, I'm an expert. So the moment that you're like shut down, you're like, oh no. You know, when I went on the course, I was, when I showed my portfolio, I had done over 100 pages of a draft for a graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
Have I done a single graphic novel at uni? No. Why is that? Because I was, you know, it was pointed out to me that is not where my style lends itself, which they were correct. My style does not work very well on a teeny tiny scale.
Yeah.
If it is like lots of detail, because I don't have the patience for doing really small, little tiny details, which I admire people who do. Probably comes down to impatience.
Playing to your strengths is always a good thing, though.
Yeah, and so, and obviously I was doing like acrylic painting as well. So, you know, I've completely come out with something different from what I expected to have, but definitely better. Definitely come out with something better.
So, what's been the highlights of studying at the university?
As a whole, like as the university as a whole?
Yeah.
My course has obviously been one of my favourite things, but another thing that I am infinitely grateful that I've gotten involved with is the societies. Obviously, I got involved with the Equestrian Society. So I ended up on a sports team and ended up being captain of it for quite a few years. And I met a bunch of remarkable people that I wouldn't have met otherwise, because they were over a completely different campus, because there's Northup campus that has all of the horse people in it and I wasn't there. So I got to meet all, like a lot of them, and especially as I've moved up to North Wales now, they've sort of become part of my network. And especially like one of my team members invited me to, like, we're in the process of trying to create a business with horses as well. So, you know, it can just take you, if you just try and grab every little, like, you know, obviously don't overload yourself, but lots of little experiences at uni, it can take you places where you didn't think they'd go. And
that's absolutely news to me. I didn't even know they had an equestrian society. And I certainly didn't know the horse people lived in Northam.
Didn't you?
I just got this vision of, like, I don't know, anthropomorphic horses walking around Northup.
Love it.
I did know that Northup does like veterinary stuff and all.
Right.
And all that
Okay.
sort of stuff. I did know that we had a campus and stuff. I didn't really. It's one of them things. We have so many societies and so many things that you can do. And even if you've got an idea for a society and we haven't got it, just go to the student union and they'll help you set it up.
Oh, is someone? I thought about this. So when I came to third year, one of the societies that I think would have been really good is a life drawing society, where you just go with like a group of like with your society to like Chester Zoo and just draw things.
Yeah.
Because I think that benefits all of the art block. And it's something that if I had come up with the idea before, I would have liked to have done it. So if anyone wants to start a society, because it will look great on your CV, you can take my idea.
Yeah, I think absolutely a life drawing society would be amazing. I mean, Walt Disney used to do it. That's where the Animal Kingdom came from. And Disneyland is having a zoo on site where the animators could just go and draw every day. So I think, and that's just having that. You know, like I always go on about. Pretty much in every stream we've done so far, we bang on about sketchbooks and having a sketchbook on your person to go out and just sketch what you see in animals and people and all sorts. Kiss My Joke's put in the chat, I'm glad I'm not the only one with that vision. So last week someone said about painting fish and I was like, what, you're painting on the fish? It's kind of like, why would you paint a fish? It's cruel. So yeah, it's kind of we have these moments where the brain just sort of goes to the completely. It must be the creative mind goes all sorts of places, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, you're from Worcester, did you say?
Worcestershire, yeah.
Worcestershire.
Not far from Worcester.
Where the source comes from?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's brown where no one can pronounce Worcestershire. Oh my days, neither can I. I'm from Worcestershire and I can't say Worcestershire sauce. There we go.
There you go.
Got it now.
They've done that on purpose to catch people out. So how have you found studying in Wales?
Loved it. Well, obviously, like I moved here, so I must have been quite fond of it. I loved the landscape and the people and it's just, I wouldn't have had it any other way really, because like my mum followed me up here because she liked North Wales as well. So I did try and encourage her to go to uni, but it didn't work. Like,
never too late.
No, genuinely, seriously, I was like, hey mum, I want to like go to uni, and she was like, oh, I don't know what I'd study. I was like, I can get you the campus booklet if you want. Like,
you could give her a tour.
Yeah. She'd fit right in. But yeah, like it's because I was either going, so my second choice of uni was actually Cheltenham, which I don't know how good people are at like geography of UK, but Cheltenham isn't far from Worcestershire. It's just the next county over. So I would have either been half an hour away from home or 2.5 hours away. So when I got my results in, and I was like, oh no, I will go for the further away one. Seems like really bad.
It's life experience as well, isn't it? It's it's staying at home for uni or moving away, isn't it? It's a choice that you have to make at some point.
Yeah.
And it suits some people to stay local and commute in. It really does. And it benefits other people moving to the area. So there's arguments for both, really. I think it just depends on your situation. Yeah.
I mean, my main thing was, do I move away from the horses or don't I? But then even that worked out for the best as well, because when I joined the Equestrian Society, they had the team and more lessons as well. So I got to ride other horses that weren't my horse, which is really good for the sport and your practice. So again, it worked out for the best.
What sport is it? You keep saying about you joined a team. What team was that?
Equestrian, like the equestrian team.
Oh, the equestrian team. I'm not too sure. I'm not too clued up on equestrian teams. I thought sport on the back of a horse was polo or something. Or is that not it now?
You say that because my friend went to Exeter and they didn't have an equestrian team, but they had a polo team. I was like, well, that's just really hardcore. I've never done polo in my life. So, yeah, it definitely formed, part of that SU experience really did encourage me to come to Glyndŵr as well. So
that's great to hear. I think the Student Union have won so many awards for inclusion and getting people involved in stuff. And I think it's like you say, you've never heard of Glyndŵr before you sort of find it on Newcastle. I do feel that I always say this, we're like kind of the best kept secret, and that's another reason why I started these streams, is to so more people could see what we do, when we do it, how we do it, that sort of stuff. Because it's really sort of...
Definitely, because when I was studying A-level maths, I've forgotten now, fine art and philosophy and ethics, and when my maths teacher was like, oh, where are you going? I was like, Wrexham. And he was like, Wrexham? Like, we had people in my class that were going to, like, Swansea, there were a lot of the bigger universities that people had heard of, and I was just there like, Wrexham. They're like, oh, I didn't even know they had a uni. I was like, yeah, looks really good.
Well, you stuck around for the Masters, so we must have done something right.
Exactly, yeah.
So,
definitely.
That's always good to hear. So let's leave the uni alone for a minute. So what made you get into children's books?
I think it was when Yadja and Sue were looking over my work, and they were like, don't do graphic novels, do children's illustration. I always have this thing where if I really want to do it, I'll be really stubborn about it. If I'm not really that passionate about it, I'll be like, okay, to the change. And so it just kind of went like that. And at the time I was like, oh, I don't really know what I'd do a children's book about. And then a couple of projects later, we started on a big issue project, and I did it about it was rescue dogs. And even though it was in traditional media, the book didn't work, the narrative wasn't that great, I definitely enjoyed doing that more than doing the 100-page graphic novel that was drafted that didn't make any sense and gives me far too much room to be to have my too much gene just go onto a page. So it was that sort of control that I think children's books encourage. It sounds like it's going to be really limited, but it's not. It's just obviously with most books, they're 32 pages long. Yeah. So sort of have to keep to that format if you can. Some of them are obviously longer. It depends what market you're going for, but this is just me doing really bad lines that I will probably redo another time because I just want to try and find out what hair is. How does one even draw hair? I don't know.
Trial and error.
This is how I work though. It's just I don't know what hair looks like. Does it look like this? It will eventually. Depends how long you leave it. Anyway, I digress. And then started doing a lot of research, and it was definitely more my market. When I went to uni, I had a shelf of graphic novels, and then I moved on to a bigger shelf of children's books. So definitely got more engrossed in it.
So when you said you had a shelf of graphic novels, what did that shelf include?
I can get a few right now.
It's always interesting to ask Always interesting to know, be completely nosy at what graphic novels people are reading.
One of them is actually a graphic novel, kind of. It's a wordless one, which I picked up from the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, no, it kind of is a children's book, but it's got. This is where I get really like cryptic about illustration, because I'm like, it is a graphic novel, but it's in a children's book style to me.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful one called Petals, and it's quite sad, really.
Yeah.
But it is in a children's book style. And then I've got When Sadness Comes to Call. I can't pronounce any of the people's names, so I like go to read them and then I'm like, just don't embarrass yourself.
I'm sure if people wanted to read those or look into those, they could find them on it.
Yeah. Which is a really simple book, and it's one that actually inspired the style for Tiny.
Right.
Because it's really, like, the backgrounds are just lines. Yeah. And so...
Nice and clean.
It
makes really, the artwork stand out more as well.
It's really clean. I've also got this book by... it's by... Well, the illustrator is actually a student, was a student at Birmingham Uni. And I saw them at... what's it called? New Designers. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the event down in London every year.
I sort of forgot about them as soon as I realised that I probably wouldn't go to it. And so she did this book called Molly and the Bog Sprogs, and that's on my shelf. And I think that their style is just like, it's just so clean.
So I mean, it leads us straight on to your influences. The question I always ask people, who or what are your influences? If we start with the Who, in terms of artists,
Jim Field. That's one of my influences. But Jim Field is an influence.
Why is? Did you say Jim Field?
Yes.
Why is Jim Field an influence?
So. I can't remember how recent it is now, because the last time I saw the book was in Waterstones, and I don't know when I went in because lockdown happened. Yeah. So I'm assuming it was about a year ago. But he illustrated the book about the wolf, and I can't remember what that one's called either, because again, it's about the wolf having to find his way home or getting lost. Okay. And I just find that his like digital artwork is just like breathtaking. It's just it's gorgeous. There is an artist that I have up there, and I can't pronounce her name either. So
it's always good to have an influence that you can't pronounce.
I know who they are. But another thing that people can do is on my Instagram, I've got highlighted stories called Art I Love.
Mm-hmm. All right, okay.
That's got most of my influences in it. So that's one. That's one way of finding out who I'm influenced by, because that's my way of like researching and showing myself what, like if I'm sort of stumped, I'll go back and look at them. I also keep a research file with a lot of people in.
Yeah, that's always a good thing to keep. It's something now I think all students should keep as a research file, like a scrapbook almost, isn't it? If you just keep everything you find, whether it's a flyer or something in a magazine that you've cut out, or even business cards, napkins, whatever it is that's got some sort of artwork or design on it that you're inspired by or you like, then get it in that book.
Another artist that I've got written up here, when you said about like cutting things out, I have things cut out in front of me, just like Carolina T. Oh, she's got another name I can't pronounce. Looks like this.
Brilliant. But it's kind of, I think that's what I like about the illustration rooms in the university, is that you get your own space that you can, before COVID hit and we had to go online, you had your own space where you had your own pin boards around your working area.
Yeah, mine was always covered, plastered.
Yeah.
Because if there's a space to fill that I can move things around on, like you find the commitment of walls with me, it's a big commitment. But if it's a little board that I can pin things to that is very low commitment, that I can fill. So it's just usually the thing that's in front of me and not behind me.
So what is your favourite thing about working on children's books?
Now that one I do have to think about a little bit. Favourite thing about the freedom of topic, I guess, because there's so much that I think needs to be talked about with children, especially with the way different topics are becoming more acceptable to talk about, like different movements coming in, and there are artists that are finding such complex ways of talking about them, like the was it 2019 or 2020 winner of Macmillan did one, like the artwork was absolutely beautiful, but it was about like a black girl with who was finding her way in the city, and it was how like she was treated. I think, if I remember correctly, I might be thinking of a different book, but I'm sure that's what it was about. And I was just like, that was one of the influences for talking about separation with Together, because the ending of it is it's a very open-ended. It could be called bittersweet, but it depends on what ending you pick.
Yeah.
And so, like, that was something when I was trying to come up with the ending of Together, of where I was kind of like, I can't leave it like that. Like people are gonna think I'm cruel. And whereas, I was talking about it with a lot of people who are like, no, because it needs to be talked about. And you find that sometimes parents struggle to talk about difficult topics with their children because they don't want to see them upset. But if they've got a conversation piece, they can talk about it in a much more relaxed environment, rather than sitting down at the table and saying, like, listen, there's this really serious topic that I'm going to scare you with right now.
Yeah, speaking as a parent, I mean, there's so many books that have helped over the years, from whether that's potty training or just even sort of going through like up to teenage years and things like that, trying to explain sort of mental health and things to kids. Or bereavement or the lockdown is such a difficult thing to do. But having that visually and having, children's illustrators help you with that has been
definitely
invaluable.
When Sadness Comes to Call is about children dealing with emotions and not locking sadness away, and I think that is a huge one to talk about, because it's like not suppressing your emotions, which I think even a lot of like adults do. So I think that that's the great thing about children's books, is that you can find a very maybe simple or simplified way of talking about a very big complex topic, because you've got to make it understandable to children, or to me.
So what's your least favourite thing about children's books?
Trying to get into the industry.
That's fair. That's fair enough, isn't it? I think it's such a sort of tricky thing, isn't it? We're just trying to get a job at the end of it.
The problem with it is when you've got this sea, especially online now, because like lockdowns happened and people have had time to be like, you know what I really want to do? I want to write a children's book. And so that's flooding it even more. and obviously, like, some of them are great, you know, but some of them are like they're coming from a place of, you know, not really well thought through ideas, or just not original. Obviously, it floods it all, and then you're just one little tiny little particle in this big sea of images that are all children's illustration.
Yeah.
But, you know, yeah.
Getting to the top of that pile of portfolios and CVs and ideas,
Yeah.
I suppose. It's tricky. And I think that's where one thing we try and do, especially with the sort of creative futures and the locating practice modules, is making sure that you know exactly where you're going afterwards, what jobs that are out there, how to apply for those jobs, what to put in your portfolio, what not to put in your portfolio, and if that's something, and if you find that once you get to that studio or you work freelance or whatever else and it's not for you, it's thinking about setting your own business up.
Yeah.
And making work for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think once you find that foothold, like, you know, trying to get in there, then you've sort of found it. And as long as you keep cracking at it, it's fine. But it's just getting your hands in it.
Yeah.
And especially at the moment with some things not moving. So, like, one thing that I was really looking forward to was new designers, but that's just, you know, not really worked this year. Which, you know, it's not the only thing that hasn't worked the last few years. So I completely understand that. But obviously that has an influence.
New designers and young blood and all that, them sort of exhibitions and conferences and things like that are so valuable to graduates and people coming out of the other end of studies to showcase what you can do to a large audience is invaluable as well, I think. So it's finding a way of overcoming that, and again doing these live streams and stuff and getting your work out there and showing what you can do. Hopefully something might come of it, someone might spot it and whatever else. But a comment in the chat, because Matt Chokes put, pushing your work, keep pushing your work. Those that have popped up during lockdown will more than likely drop off and you'll still be going.
Yeah, this is true. That hadn't been something that I had contemplated yet. Hadn't quite got to that thought process.
Yeah, it's and the thing is, I mean, you know, moving forward with social media and pushing your work out there and getting it noticed. You're doing all the right things. Now it's just keep going and not take your foot off the gas, because there's so many graduates, you know, they come out the other end, and it's just making sure that you, like I say, your portfolio and your CV is at the top of the pile.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we bring in a lot of guest speakers to talk to you about portfolios and stuff, and a lot of people who are currently working in those industries to make sure that your portfolio is relevant as well.
Yeah, definitely. And like coming up with a portfolio has been like the best experience. And I look back at like sort of where I was at the start of uni, and I'm like, oh, you were a little BB. You knew nothing, but it was it's still nice to look back, you know, not being cruel to myself.
Because you started working with you probably, this is the second year now, isn't it? Because I had Creative Futures last year and then Locating Practice this year, and your portfolio has changed, I think, 3 times since I've seen your portfolio.
Yeah, I just keep changing what I'm doing, different software, and like it's as soon as I start looking at jobs, even though I'm not saying that's where I'd go, like you know, looking on Indeed at those jobs, not even saying that's the direction I'd go in after uni, for definite, but a lot of them have requirements on them, like what qualifications or what experience you need to have. Obviously a lot of them are like, you need to have worked in the industry for and I'm like, great, how'd you get in? But they, you know, some of them are like proficient in Photoshop, Illustrator and InDesign. I'm like, great, I can like do that, you know, now. I couldn't do that at the start of this year because I hadn't used Illustrator yet. But that's like an easy, well, not an easy way, but that's a stepping stone into feeling like you're a little bit more prepared.
Yeah, it's always frustrating now when you look for jobs and it's like 2 years industry experience. Well, how am I supposed to get 2 years industry experience?
Yeah, like you won't.
It's kind of, if you give people a chance. So I think looking for more graduate opportunities as well. And when we speak to companies and stuff and we talk to them about students and work placements and stuff, we're always talking to them about graduate programs, and just building that experience up. Because it's key to your development as well. Key to sort of keeping the industry fresh and bringing in new talent all the time. So, can you remember what the first children's book is that you sort of read? Your very first, or the one that sort of has stayed with you from childhood?
Gruffalo.
The Gruffalo.
The Gruffalo. I was obsessed. Apparently, just couldn't put it down, and I still have. I had like the A3 one, like the huge one. I've still got it somewhere. It's probably up in my bedroom. Obviously, I don't read it every night now. That one. That was my favourite one as a child. So.
Julia Donaldson, is it?
Yeah, I mean, the illustrators, Axel Chef, can't pronounce anything.
Yeah. But there's been a whole sort of host of books that have come from that partnership, like Snail and the Whale and Room on a Broom and things like that. Such a fantastic series, and then got turned into animations. Yeah, which is
it's
huge.
Crazy. What else did I like? Obviously, everyone read like Hungry Caterpillar, but I don't think they stuck with it. I think that one was just like hanging out.
I mean, you made me feel old when you said the Gruffalo, but I think Hungry Caterpillar was about when I was younger. I remember seeing that in school.
Didn't mean to make you feel old.
So, the Gruffalo, how did that impact you then? The Gruffalo, it's kind of, because that's the follow-on question that I've got for what was the first book you read and what impact it made on you.
You know what's weird is that I actually can't remember like the actual like what happens in it, because I obviously haven't read it in a long time. I don't have any younger siblings. I'm the youngest in my family, so I never actually read it to anyone when I was like a bit more, when I could actually remember things better. But I can own it's probably to do with it like having animals in it and then just this really weird like monster thing. Like it was just fun. It was fun to read. It was fun to look at. I think that was it, honestly. I would love to say that like, I loved drawing the Gruffalo, like it really taught me to draw, but no, what taught me to draw was horses. So
well, it's a good way to start. It's not the most easiest of animals to draw.
It's not. And then I struggled with things like people, so it like went backwards.
That's interesting. I mean, most people start with stick figures or people and then move on to animals after. But learning animals first,
I painted people realistically, like not photorealistically, but it was never part of my illustration style. When I came to uni, I probably drew horses the same as I do now. Because that's been how I formed my style around the way that I drew horses, because that was the way that I naturally drew. So I do it.
What age did you start drawing then?
I was very, very tiny, and it was all because I have I have two older sisters, but I was very close in age to the middle sister, who liked to draw, and I copied her all the time, so I just drew with my sister, and that was what taught me to draw, really. because when she got a bit older and stopped drawing, I carried on, and I carried on doing I carried on studying art because it was what I was good at. In first school, I say first school because I had a middle school, so everyone's always like, why'd you call it a middle school? I'm like, I had a middle school, okay? It sounds strange, me saying primary school. But first school was, I used to go into the library at lunchtimes, and I was allowed to take one person in each lunchtime, and they were like, will you come in, can I come in with you and learn to draw today? You're like, yeah, come on in. So that's why I kept drawing, because people were like, can you teach me, and so I just spent lunchtimes instead of going outside, even though now it's the opposite, I'm outside very loads, but when I was at school, I didn't really enjoy lunchtime, so I preferred being inside drawing. So that's why I kept drawing.
That's certainly a good way to, it's a good foundation for building your career.
Yeah, definitely.
Constantly drawing from a young age, and teaching people as well. It's not I'd say teaching's not an easy thing to do. It's very difficult. It's the hardest thing you can ever do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're watching you using Clip Studio. So, the question for the digital artist tag there: what do you have any particular brush packs that you use? Are you just using the ones that are based in software? I know you mentioned before that you haven't made your own.
Yeah.
But is there any that you've downloaded that you'd recommend?
No, I haven't downloaded anything. I'm not that tech savvy. Now that you've said it, I probably will go and try and investigate ones to download. But I used to be obsessed with the watercolor brush, which is the one that I've used for the hair. Well, I've experimented with it for the hair. I don't think I'll keep it. I probably, as I said earlier, I take 2-3 attempts to finish a piece of artwork. So I like to experiment with the brushes on different areas first, and because it's flat color, I found the oil paint one is the best one to get just a flat color that's not it doesn't flake out on me. So I do. There's a lot of things that I need to learn about it still, but it's the one that I use because it's the one that I've used the longest, and it's got a bit more flexibility to it. So
Yeah, I think it's not an easy thing to learn, sort of editing. Well, you can create brushes quite quickly and easily, just a couple of clicks of a button. But in terms of getting it right, now there's a skill. I mean, you can spend hours and hours playing with it and trying to get things right when you've already got a brush that does what you need it to do.
Yes.
So I've fallen foul to downloading brushes just basically so I could get a fountain pen that I could write on screen with during a lesson. That actually was a nice pen to write with on the tablet that I've got, and I wasted so much time downloading brushes and pens and pestering people, going, what brush pack do you use? Where did you get that from? And there's loads of free ones out there, but you can spend a fortune. And if you get it right, I know we spoke to Rebecca from the year below you for the first stream, and she was saying that there was a brush that she's got that she hasn't downloaded any others, but she tweaked it in the settings to get it right for her. So I think just sometimes having to play with it, but trying not to break it at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's because I start using something and I'm like, this works fine, why change it? And then I sort of forget about that experimental part. But at the same time, no one said your brushes are ugly, use something different. So
no, I think it's nobody's going to sort of question what brush you used, apart from when you do something like this and we go, oh, what brushes are you using? How did you get that line there? That sort of those sort of questions. So
Yeah.
looking at your sketched lines now, what did you use for that? Was that just a pencil or?
Yeah, that was a just a rough pencil. And the only reason I really use that, I change very frequently of what I use to like rough things out. This one at the moment is just because I think I got like a massive art block when I was like, oh, I've got, a month left. This was like a couple of weeks ago. Got a month left until I like finish for good. I was like, so what are you going to draw? I was like, don't know. And so this felt very organic to me because I used to be traditional. So it's a bit more of like a realistic pencil. So it's a bit more comfortable. This isn't my comfortable way of drawing. I don't like using lots and lots of little lines, but I think it's when I'm trying to be quick. Yeah. I'm just like, just get it down. Just try and find some form somewhere. And, it works. I don't know how people can use the same process over and over again, because for me, it depends on how I'm feeling that day. And how, like, what I'm trying to achieve with something. All I was doing then was trying to rub out another layer, because when I roughed it out, I did it on all the same layer. So I'm just correcting myself.
Yeah, the problem with layers.
Which I've still messed it up, so I've got to copy and paste that over.
So when you come to refine those lines, or will you be refining those lines, or is that the style now of the piece?
Oh, I'll be refining the lines. Yeah, they'll completely change. They'll change more. I might not even have lines in the end. It might just be flat colour. Right. But that's something that I'll decide when more of the colour's on properly. Because there are still... I want to figure out what I'm doing with the windows, because they're definitely not staying that texture. Because that's gross to me. Like, it's a scribble. Like, I want to figure out if I'm going to have any texture in the buildings. I don't tend to set out with a plan of texture. I can sort of plan out what things I want flat and what things I don't want flat. At the moment, the skin will stay flat. Yeah. Because that's where I want to draw more attention, to distract away from my cityscape.
Because I was talking to the level 4 students, or the first years today, about taking their animations from sort of sketchy, quite rough sort of animatics to more refined lines. Yes. With flat colours and things like that. So what would you use to get those lines perfect?
What if I actually kept lines in?
Yeah, if you were going to keep lines in, what would you use? What brush would you use to put those lines in over the top? Or would you keep the pencil?
I wouldn't keep the pencil. I've never kept the pencil. I think there's been a couple of compositions where I've gone with one of the pastels. Yeah. Or the line, if there's been no colour, I've chosen those lines, because especially for children's books, I like with some images for it to sort of mirror a child drawing with like some crayon. So it's just fun to me. Sometimes it doesn't work. I think with this Rosa Parks one, I can probably find it. I had scribbly lines in. Again, I don't delete layers, because I like to have a look back at what I did before.
It's always a good thing as well, because if you ever want to revisit that or change it in some way, you've got that previous layer.
Yeah, sometimes, like, this is named... Oh, well, that's a good point, actually. It's called Rosa Parks Idea version 3, so that means I've got the original. Yeah, because this changed 3 times. Yeah. Because it started off being really rough, which I was like, oh, do I like it quirky and rough? And then Sue was like, no. It's like, oh, okay. I won't do that. maybe this one. If it comes up. Yeah. So this was what it was like before, because I didn't, but you see how this was just this chalky line?
Yeah.
That's sometimes what I put in. As you can see, this is what I would usually call a colour rough, but I wanted to see if I could get away with it because I thought it was fun. But it definitely, the other one is far better.
Yeah.
But it was just it's sometimes just nice just to see if you can do things more simply. I like trying to see if I can capture what a child like imagines things to look like. Especially when for some reason mum's had this massive sort out and she finds this random drawing I did when I was 7. I'm like, oh, it's so funny. They're so funny, and I don't even call them bad. I just think they're hilarious, because I'm sure at the time I was like, that's a meerkat, but I spelt it like meerkat, and that's what a meerkat was to me. And it's just a really bad scribble of a meerkat. So
it's always interesting to look back though and see the journey that you've made of what it used to be like to what it is now.
Yeah, and I do keep them because, I mean, this one, obviously it would look better if it was actually on a book, because at the moment as a composition it doesn't look very good because it's a book jacket type thing. It's got this, you know, ISBN number hanging out down there, and that looks awful. But that would be there. So that was the thing that this one was meant to achieve, was looking at the layout of a book and how to try and get the front cover and the back cover to work together. I'm trying to remember with this one what I needed to correct, and I need to put a frame around these little windows and make this line lighter. That's why that one's still up in my tabs, because otherwise I'll just forget about it and then try and add it into my portfolio, and I'll look at it and be like, I meant to do that weeks ago. So try and keep it in there.
Yeah, it's difficult when you've got multiple projects on the go at the same time.
But
it's a skill that you need when it comes to taking on commissions or working freelance or working for a publisher or whatever else, when they've got you, they're asking you to do 3 different things.
Yeah, I mean, if I counted the amount of things that I do in a day, like not just artwork, it's so many different areas of my life. That's just how my brain works better. So when I ask people, what have you done, like what have you been up to today, and they're like, oh, I just did this thing, and I'm like, my brain would die. You know, like I envy people who can just sit down and be like, this is what I'm doing today, and I'm like, no. No. So you've got to find a way of work that works best for you. Like with the soldier one, I started to dislike this corner, so I've just moved on to something else until I come back to it, and I'll probably have a better idea of it the next time I go back to it, or I'll think, aha, that should go there. I just have to give things time, very often, and try and see if there's a better way of doing things. Like I'm not really liking the look of this hand at the moment, but tomorrow I might.
Yeah, I suppose jumping between one thing and another, giving your brain a refresh of giving it time to process what it is you're doing at that one particular time.
And sometimes I'll come to like the one-to-one sort of sessions for uni, and I'll look at the thing that I hated the day before, and I'm like, you're just being dramatic. It's not that bad. It actually looks okay. You're just being dramatic. So
it's always nice to get peer feedback as well, or feedback from other people.
Yeah.
I think when you're so close to a project, it can often sort of really, you can end up changing things just because you're too close to the project.
Yes.
And then it's not often for the better. So it's always like, I know my wife's probably absolutely sick and tired of me going, can you have a look at this for me? Can you just check this for me? What do you think of this? What does this mean? Can you tell me what this looks like? So it's always good to get a fresh pair of eyes on things.
Yeah, and it is one of the things that I'll miss about uni is having those designated days, being like, you're going to have someone look over your work that day. and you know it's going to happen that day, and now it's going to be whenever I feel like it. And sometimes people aren't free when you want them to be.
Yeah. So are you nervous about finishing? Because I mean, this is kind of.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I'd be surprised of anyone coming out of a art course that wasn't a little bit nervous about jumping in, unless that you've got like a job lined up. I thought I did, honestly, all the way through uni. I've been like, it's fine, because at the end of masters I'm going to have something. And obviously it's just, I don't fully blame COVID, but at the same time I think it's changed so much that how can you not blame it even a little bit? Like, it has changed so much about you know, trying to find ways into the industry. Like, a lot of competitions got postponed, and now you're dealing with 2 sets, like 2 years of competitions. So it's like even more competition now. So I am sort of gonna let it die down a little bit before getting too worried.
I think we talked about this the other day. It's kind of like when you think some people have, we've gone into lockdown, and you know, you were a certain age when you went in and you came out. Some people, it's almost 2 years. It's kind of like some people have gone in, like especially people doing GCSEs, they've gone into lockdown at 15 and they're coming out of it 17.
Yeah.
And it's like they've got this whole sort of missed period where in them 2 years they would have been out looking for part-time work, or they would have been out with their friends or building confidence and whatever else. So I think you're right. I think you've got the right outlook on this in terms of giving it time to settle down.
Yeah, definitely.
And looking at things, because it is a nervous time coming out of this, we're still sort of in the throes of a pandemic, even though things are starting to look better. I mean, they had the first sort of concert, didn't they, on the weekend in Liverpool. The first time a big mass gathering's been allowed to happen. So if that, you know, things like that continue on, then we could start seeing it get back to normal sooner rather than later, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it will. And I was saying to a friend the other day who they're going to Thought Bubble, and I do think that it is the way to go. You know, not like it's not the only way that people are going to be able to go, but it will help because obviously people are gagging to get out and do something. So by booking all of these different, you know, exhibitions, just places for people to see your work, people will see it because people are going to go to them, I think, anyway.
Well, especially with you know, with foreign travel, they're on about extending that a bit longer, stopping that from happening. So people are going to be staying in this country a lot more. So I think even if people don't go on the old staycation and stuff, they're going to be looking to do a lot more Comic-Cons, festivals, whatever else they can get out and do. So just for those who are watching who don't know, have never heard of Thought Bubble, do you want to just tell us a bit about Thought Bubble?
I haven't ever been to it. I'm the wrong person to talk.
Okay, so it's a comic book festival, isn't it?
Yes.
Where people from the industry go and exhibit what they do and sell their work. So kind of like a Comic-Con, but for I wouldn't say I don't want to say professionals because people still go and they get a lot of unique works and things from it, can't you? And commissions and whatever else. So it's kind of, I don't think you get many cosplayers at Thought Bubble, do you?
No, not that I know of.
That's the kind of difference, I think, and not so many sort of Marvel panels.
No.
Trade show.
I've been to Comic-Cons before, even though I'm not like, I don't actually know many things that are actually at Comic-Con. You know, I've never watched Star Wars, so but I haven't been to Thought Bubble before, but I know a lot of people on like in illustration, if they've been into comics, they've usually tried to get a stall there. A lot of them have had really good feedback from it, so it's worth doing.
So you've just said that you've never watched Star Wars, and we've brought you on. We've brought you on to a live stream on Star Wars Day.
Didn't know that.
May the 4th.
Yeah, but that could be any 4th. Like the 4th of any month.
No, May. It's May, right. May the 4th. Brilliant. I suppose if you have never watched Star Wars, you're not going to know, are you? Like, may the Force be with you, May the 4th, and all that. And
this is where people switch off.
Have you seen the viewer counts just plummeted? I mean, literally now, it's just me and you.
Absolutely not. Not dealing with this woman. She is a fake.
So, and Kismatacho's put in the chat, it's Star Wars Day, you have to watch it now. So now that's your homework, or we would be downgrading your work if you haven't watched Star Wars and pass a quiz.
Not enough hours in a day for me to watch all the Star Wars.
And tomorrow is Revenge of the Fifth.
I don't know what that means.
Well, one of the films is called Revenge of the Sith. So tomorrow's the 5th.
Good to know.
So yeah, and this is why I do animation and stuff. It's the geeky side of things. And Magneto's put in the chat, your next art project, Star Wars characters.
Oh, they'll be ugly though.
So.
Because no, I don't draw. I don't really do other people's characters. I can never do them justice. I'm like the only. I swear I'm the only illustrator that doesn't draw like other people's stuff.
That's not a bad thing, though, is it? I mean, if it's all unique stuff, it's kind of people know they're going to get.
Yeah.
Kiss my hat, jokes, but what kind of things are they teaching you in Glendor?
Evidently not the right thing if I don't know about Star Wars.
Someone called Bike Banana. I don't know if you know who Bike Banana is. I'd just like to say I tried to get Han to watch Star Wars, but it didn't go too well.
Where? Oh, yeah, no, I do remember. Yeah, it wasn't a great time.
So I don't know if you know who that person is, but yeah.
I do know who that person is.
So, yeah. That's it now. I don't know. I think that's it. The interview's over. It's kind of.
I've dropped the mood.
Yeah.
Going,
gone.
What else can I tell people I've never watched?
Next, you'll be telling us you don't like Marvel. Oh, well, let's move on quickly. So let's jump into some of the questions that I do have for you. Is kind of popular culture. So what kind of things do you watch? If you don't watch Star Wars, you don't do Marvel, what do you watch in your spare time? Is it like Black Beauty or something?
Oh, I haven't watched Black Beauty in years. God, I watched Lord of the Rings.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, that's geeky enough for us. Yeah.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings is like a big mood. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like The Hobbit though.
That was the next question: Hobbit or Lord of the Rings? So we've established it's Lord of the Rings. I think they're making a TV show, aren't they, soon? So.
Oh, well, that's not going to be good.
So I don't know. I think Peter Jackson's involved in it.
Yeah. Sure. Depends what mood he's in.
What about Game of Thrones? Did you watch Game of Thrones? That's sort of. No.
I tried. I watched the odd episode and I just didn't get it. God, people are gonna unfollow me.
Your follower count on Instagram has just really plummeted. No, so I mean, but that's it. It's people have different influences. People have different likes, and I think that sometimes can affect what you.
I had a lot of animation that animated films that influenced me. Like a lot of DreamWorks, honestly.
Yeah.
So
good studio.
Huh?
Good studio.
Yeah, good studio. Probably one of my favorite ones. But I'm not a big TV person. I don't know why.
I think so. Kiss my jokes, but Game of Thrones can get in the bin. So there you go. So you've got somebody who's got.
Yeah. It doesn't. To me, it's not worth the hours.
It is one of them, isn't it? I think I found when I started watching it, it was kind of. I'm invested now, so I've got to watch it till it was like Lost. I had to watch it to the end, even though it went horrific halfway through. It's kind of. I got to see what happens in the end. So yeah. So when it comes to children's books, which would you say? Do you prefer to work on covers, or is it more interior stuff that you prefer to do?
Interior, big time. Like, I'm so fast at that. I don't, which is why one of these projects was a front cover and a back cover, because I'm not very confident at them.
Right, okay.
I tend to try to put too much into them, because I think that they have to, that if they're advertising the book, they have to say everything about it. When, even though half the ones that I've got like sat right there are really nice, just simple, and then I'm there like, nah, gotta all be there. But it doesn't. It's just like, I think that's my first instinct when I go up to a front cover. Whereas with the interior, I'm like, I have all this room, all this time to think. Yeah.
I suppose you get to grips with the story a bit more as well, there, don't you? You can sort of
and I'm a narrative person, so I'm a lot more into the narrative of it than front cover.
Because I mean, people always go on about judging a book by a cover, but a child walking up to a book stand is going to pick up the cover that's they're attracted to most.
Yeah. So, this is my fear.
It is a minefield. It's tricky.
Yeah, like please look in it. I promise you won't be disappointed on the inside of it. Yeah.
So do you ever see any sort of, I mean, more and more children nowadays do stuff with tablets and Kindles and whatever else. So do you think, would you prefer physical books, or do you think digital's a good way to go? Or
I actually wrote my dissertation on this. This was my third year dissertation, because I can see merit in both. Yeah. But I always think that there needs to be time given to tradition, like to a physical book. Yeah. Because obviously, like, digital isn't good for your eyes all the time. And I think if you start the habit early with children that everything is on a tablet, then you can get like the antisocial behavior at the dinner table where everyone's on their tablet, like really generic image of everyone on technology. And I really don't like that. I don't like it when people like triple screen, where they've got their phone, their laptop, TV. Like, how? How are you functioning?
That does seem to be the teenage way nowadays. It does seem to be. I mean, a lot of the level 4 students have got like multiple devices going on off at once.
Yeah, like I understand too, maybe. Like if you're on your laptop doing a bit of research and the TV happens to be on and more people are watching it, then like, yeah, that's fine. But there comes a point where it is too much technology and it can go on too late. I think that like being able to learn on technology is important though, because obviously it offers a lot more, like a broader range of ways for children to learn from something. You know, for example, with like, say if you wanted a child to read, and let's say the Gruffalo, and it was animated, that is going to engage a child more than the book, sadly, but it will, because it's a moving image and we're visual beings. So if we see something move, our eyes are drawn to it. So I think that like there's a place for both, basically. I think if a book can be put on both platforms and used like to both their merit, then yeah, like great. Just don't do one. Yeah,
there is something nice about having a physical book. There's always the traditional sort of, just bedtime stories, that sort of stuff, and having that physical book.
Books smell better.
There's that as well, yeah. And it looks nice on your shelf. I mean, your iPad doesn't look great on a shelf.
No.
So yeah, I don't think physical books are going anywhere soon, but I've seen some things recently, you know, like especially like the Dr. Seuss stuff, and you've got Cat in the Hat, and it's you've got the app that you can move through, and it's not just, it becomes more than a book. Then it becomes an interactive piece.
Yeah, when it becomes its own thing, then that works great. If it's just a carbon copy put on a Kindle, then no, I don't think it's worth it. But that's just, you know, for some people it works.
I've seen a bit of research recently. A lot of school teachers, primary school teachers, or secondary school teachers, kids coming up from primary school, don't know how to use a keyboard and mouse because they've only got iPads and tablets in primary school.
Yeah, that is actually quite similar to my mum. So she can use her phone and her tablet, but put the laptop in front of her and she has a tantrum. So
I suppose it's what you're used to, isn't it? And I think it's the classic debate between Mac versus PC. You know.
Yeah.
So we've got a comment from Ori. Visual novels, a genre of video game, are basically books in digital form, just more interaction involved. Yeah, I mean, you know, video games, there's so much narrative that goes into a video game now that it's like, you know, they've got their own story department, their own sort of narrative department, and the driving force. If we didn't have that sort of narrative driven video games, then a lot of them wouldn't have franchises. So I think it's a different type of platform, isn't it? If we can start inspiring children at a young age to read stories and tell stories, and then when it comes to media and developing more games, more movies, whatever else, then we've got people who have come up through the ranks been able to tell stories.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good point there from Ori. I think we're coming up to the 2 hour mark. It's been it's gone quite quick. We've got about 5-6 minutes left. So if anyone's got any questions in the chat, then certainly let us know, and we will. I'll read those out before we finish up. And there's another comment coming from Kiss Macho. I really enjoyed the Horizon Zero Dawn narrative. It makes the game when there's a brilliant story. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, it's something that I enjoy playing games anyway, because that's sort of my background. But do you play many video games, Hannah, or do you not have time for that? No.
The most recent console I have is the Wii.
Okay.
So no. I don't. If I play games, I annoy people because I play D&D, but I just make really ridiculous characters and then go around and destroy the game. So I'm either your best person to play with or you're a nightmare. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it's D&D is one of them games that you have to use an imagination, and looking at your artwork and stuff, you've clearly got lots of imagination.
I have, but I'm not very good at role playing.
Right.
Right.
So what we'll do now for the last sort of 5 minutes, I mean, I can bring up your Instagram again, and we can certainly show people some more stuff, more work. If you like what Hannah does, then certainly head over to Instagram and give her a follow. If someone was interested in a commission, Hannah, or wanted you to do something, what would be the best way to get in touch with you?
Just messaging me on either Facebook or Instagram.
Okay.
Like my Facebook's the same handle, you know, so I'm easy to find. So yeah, messaging.
And I'll bring up Hannah's Instagram again. So there we go. So there's some of Hannah's work. So we'll certainly head over to the Instagram page and give her a follow. I think you might have a few people who are interested in your recyclable wrapping paper, and certainly some more of the stuff. And there we go. Is that your desk that you're sitting up by right now?
That is, yeah.
There you go. So if anyone's interested, there's the pin board that we were talking about before.
Probably not quite as tidy as that anymore. That was when I first had it all. And I've got a different chair. I've got one of those kneeling chairs.
Ah, right, okay. So what do you prefer the kneeling chair or the?
Yeah, yeah. I get quite bad shoulder pain, so it does
Mhm.
help with that because I'm not like a bad posture person, but I do have to be in the right position to not
Yeah.
ache. So
I mean, that
definitely
looks like a fantastic space to create artwork. Big,
it is.
open space windows, things like that.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. It just so happened that like the house that mum bought had a big garden, a lot of patio, and she wanted to fill it. So she was like, "You can put whatever you want there." I was like, "Thank you, I will. I'll put this studio here."
Right. And because my art jokes, but already liked the Insta, and the drawing is fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
There we go. So that's going to sort of bring us up now to the conclusion of tonight's interview. Let me just turn that off. So what we'll do, all that's left for us to do now is thank you very much for giving up your time tonight and being with us and
Thank you for
talking through
having
your
me.
process. You're very welcome, and it's been really, really good chat to you about children's books and your process and digital art and things like that. And so what we tend to do, I mentioned this to you before because I realised that I forget to tell a lot of the students about us going off and raiding another channel. So I did pre-warn you. So usually when we go off to raid, we let the guest pick a random word for everyone who's raiding to put it in the chat of the next person. So do you have a random word for us?
No, I've forgotten what this is about. A random word.
Just any
Badger.
random word. Badger.
Badger.
Badger's a good word. Let me just see if there's anybody on that we are following right now. Let's have a look. Well, most of the people that are on now are all playing games. So we've got someone playing Grand Theft Auto, someone playing Modern Warfare, but there's actually someone called Corrigan that is doing art. So we'll probably go over there. So we'll click that. I will throw up the end screen. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Thanks again for joining us and being part of tonight's stream. I will throw up the end screen right now, and then I'll start the raid. So thank you very much.
Thank you.